Hey guys, it's Mike with Kiss Dog Training. We're back for another talk about dogs. So, is your dog bad on leash? I really don't think your dog probably is. It's probably that you're just making some really common mistakes and you're focusing maybe on the wrong end of the leash. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about what we can do to make the dog better on leash. I think most people think that pulling on leash is a control problem. That if the dog pulls, I should pull back. If the dog is pulling, I should correct the dog. If the dog is pulling, I should constantly be saying no. If the dog is pulling, I need to go to Amazon or PetSmart and buy some kind of tool that's going to stop the pulling. Well, all of those things might have a place, okay? I'm not going to say they don't. But I think if you're constantly thinking of how do I stop the dog from pulling instead of how do I get the dog to hang around with me and not pull, you're starting at the wrong end of the equation. Oh, I think the issue here is that leash pulling really isn't about control, it's about engagement. Okay, that's talking about which end of the equation we start with. If I say the word no, you have to ask yourself, well, what instructional value does the word no have? Does it tell the dog what to do? It doesn't really even tell the dog to stop. Okay? Leash pulling is more like I should be walking nicely next to my owner, and that's what I want to do because that's where all the good stuff happens. Your dog is thinking, there's something over there I want to smell instead, and I'm just going to drag him along with me because dragging him along to the smell is more important than hanging out with him because he's always got his earbuds in and he's listening to a podcast and he's not paying attention to me, and there's really nothing going on between the two of us. So, well, if he's going to enjoy the podcast, I'm just going to take off and I'm going to go do my own thing. And i.e., that equals the pulling. And believe me, if your dog is more interested in a smell, another dog, another person, a blowing leaf than they are with you, you got to ask yourself, where did this disconnect happen and how do I get the dog more engaged with me? Let me give you a little hint. Inside the house, when I start working with my clients, it's always about hand feeding. Why is it about hand feeding? Well, it's because don't bite the hand that feeds, that old saying. If I control access to food, I become way more important, and then I can also trick my clients into 2 times a day to go work their dog. Well, we go out on a walk and we completely ignore them and expect them to do everything they did in the house on the walk, but we really haven't taught that yet, have we? Think about that one. Okay, let's ask some really simple questions. Does your dog pay attention to you at the beginning of the walk, but then kind of loses interest? Once the walk starts, once you get going, does the environment kind of take over? If you're reacting after the dog pulls instead of before, could that be something that you're kind of falling trap to? Are you trying to stop the behavior instead of teaching a different behavior? That one sounds confusing, but it's really not. And the walk itself becomes the reward, not you. Who should the dog be paying attention to? So over time, the dog learns that pulling works. It gets me what I want. We talked about the environment and everything else. And the question then really becomes, does the dog want to interact with you or interact with the world? Now, that sounds pretty bad because I don't want the dog to just simply pay attention to me and never experience the walk. I'm a firm believer that the walk itself is kind of their zen. Letting them sniff, letting them interact is really important. But so is the other side of the coin that at some point I need to be able to go, hey, leave it, and have the dog turn around and look at me, and I'm going to reward the dog for paying attention to me. I can go ahead and let the dog do their thing, but I need to know that the dog has the ability to pay attention to me. So the question is, how do we start that process? So the next simplest thing is we just got to teach the dog to engage with us, to pay attention to us, check in with us, choose to focus on us versus everything else in the world. So how do we do that? I'm going to make the suggestion really simple. When you start walking your dog, we need to stop at every driveway and ask for some kind of skill. Let's face it, the easiest one in the arsenal is a sit. So if your dog stops at every driveway, gives you a sit, you give him a cookie, you move to the next driveway, one, it keeps the focus with you. It gives you a visual cue to stop at every driveway so that you're practicing. And it gives the dog a reward for paying attention. Now, as we get better, we can go every 2 driveways, every 3 driveways, every 4 driveways. But I would say commit to a month of just stopping at every driveway. Hey, come here, sit. Okay, thank you, watch me. As we get better, it may fade from a sit into a down, or it may fade from a sit into a focused sit with a watch me. It may be that we start tinkering with that leave it command, which, if you know anything about me, I think that leave it and recall are basically the same thing. Your hand drops to your side, the dog comes to you, gets a reward. All I'm doing is adding a sit or a watch me or a down into that come here. Leave that alone, come here. But we got to come up with some way to get this started, and it's really simple. Just stop at every driveway. Now, some people are like, well, I got to exercise the dog. And this is another one of those things I probably should have said before, but you got 2 legs, the dog's got 4 legs. You can't wear a dog out unless you look me in the eyes and say, hey, look, I'm a jogger, I'm a runner, I run about 4 to 6 miles a day, I'm going to take care of the dog that way. Okay, I might buy into the fact that you're going to exercise the dog. Really and truly, walks for me are not exercise. They are attention techniques. They are for paying attention. They are for sniffing. They're for different things, but it's not a true energy draw. You might notice the dog's tired for the first 30 minutes when you get home, but then they're ready for the next thing. They got more endurance than you do in most cases. So if we can get into that habit of just checking out each driveway, getting a sit, moving to the next one, we have step 1 down. Now, step 2 is going to be looking at what kind of leash you got, okay? In that first section, you might very well be using a 4-foot leash, standard leash, okay? But really, I walk my dogs on a 15-foot long line, not a retractable leash. I'm not a big fan of those. I do have some exceptions where I will use retractable leashes. Older clients, balance issues, I don't want them tripping over the long line. But for the most part, I just walk my dogs on a 15-foot lead. That way they can go, they can do a little sniffing, they can do this, I can walk past them, they follow me. We just kind of get into this moving locomotion together. But I still stop at every driveway at this point. I'm just giving the dog more freedom to go out and come back. So now I'm kind of tinkering with the idea of recall on a walk, or what a lot of times I tell people is, I want the dog to feel like they're off leash, but I don't want to be that jerk walking my dog with no leash and no control, and then we have issues with other dogs and people and things like this. The long line gives me the ability to work the dog with a little bit of freedom and to practice recall. And when you really get into it, recall is that pre-work of a good leave it. Okay, so as we are kind of doing this, we've gone from short leash, driveway to driveway. Now we're working on the long line, letting them out, calling them back. If they get busy with a sniff, I just kind of keep walking, and they're like, whoa, 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 keep up. And, they kind of catch up with me. And I'll usually reward that of, hey, look, and be by my side is a good thing. But I guess the one caveat we haven't really talked about is, we're talking about specific leash skills right here. But this all started in the house when you were doing the hand feeding. And it was the turnaround game. Or it was working on a 4 or 6 foot leash in the house and then moving it to the backyard. We're kind of starting mid-process here, but since this conversation is all about leash work, we're going to focus on the leash work. But if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about of starting in the house, moving to the backyard, then to the driveway, and then building a walk, there's probably some videos that I'll put in the description so that you can kind of jump back and catch up with us. But so far we've got the short leash. We've kind of messed with that. Now we got the long line. And then the other thing I would add there is On your base walks when you're starting this process, don't try to walk the entire neighborhood in a new environment so the dog can get all the sniffs and be distracted possible. A lot of times when I start walking a dog, it's just down to the end of my street, all the way to the other end of my street, and we go back and forth till that becomes completely normal and it makes sense. And then I might go around the corner just a little bit, and I come back, and I might go around the corner there a little bit, and I kind of build out the walk maybe every 2 or 3 days, adding another driveway. But I don't want the dog to constantly be fighting attention because they're in a new environment every day. I'm going to give them new environments, new distractions as they can handle it, not throw it at them all at once. Okay, we've kind of already talked about this, but we're talking about walk structure. Okay, don't try to come up with a 4 mile walk. Okay, try to come up with a walk that might be 4 miles, but it has 82 stops in it. Okay, which really makes our walk a lot of little walks instead of one great big walk. So I don't want your headphones on. I don't want you listening to a podcast. I don't want you listening to music at this point. I want you focusing on the dog, and I want you stopping. This is the reason for the driveway. If I tell you to stop 82 times on a walk, you're not going to do it. But if I give you the visual cue of, hey, every time you pass a driveway, stop, get a sit, move to the next one. And it's ironic that the folks that listen to this and try this and build a walk from simple to complex versus just let's shoot for complex and fail, it blows me away at how quick they pick it up. And you don't just get a walk, you build a walk. And I think that's important. Start small, add distractions and layers, work on coming back to you, work on focusing with you, and then we have the end, the goal, the magic, and that's the leave it command. Okay, so one thing that we've got that I forgot to say in all of this, I think I insinuated it, but let's be perfectly clear so everybody's on the same page. At this point, we're avoiding distractions. Okay? When I start with the 4 foot leash and I get good at stopping at every driveway, if I see another dog, I turn around and go the other direction because I know my dog can't handle that distraction at this point. If I see that my one neighbor who loves to stop and talk about everything is out taking their trash out for the um, trash company later in the day, I'm going to probably cross the street and go around them, and I'm avoiding those distractions because the minute I get good at that 4 to 6 foot leash, I'm going to add the long line. And then I'm going to have to get the dog used to the long line. I'm still avoiding distractions. Okay? And then, I might start adding, distance to the walk and going to a few new little areas every single day, but keeping the base walk about the same. So I've got kind of that I've been there, done that. This isn't that distracting. Ooh, there's a new end to the walk. Then we come back and we have a new end at that end. Hopefully that made sense. But now, this is where a lot of people stop. And this is where you have a dog who, when it's quiet and there's no distractions, is really good on the walk. But you add a distraction. You add a person, you add a dog, you add a fire truck, you add a dump truck, you add the tornado siren going off, you see a squirrel, you see a rabbit, there's a leaf blowing across, and your walk becomes a nightmare. And this is where the leave it command comes from, okay? Again, this is one of those topics that we've already covered a little bit throughout the years on the podcast and the videos and everything that we've done. So I'm not going to have a huge, description here, but we'll put it in the description, some other things that you can go look at, is we now have to make it as valuable coming back to us away from the distraction as the distraction is distracting. So if I start with the distraction of a dog who is losing their mind on leash right across the street from us, and you expect your dog to behave, and you haven't practiced that, that's just silly, okay? A lot of my clients will know that in the fourth session, when I'm doing in-home sessions, I bring one of my dogs. I bring Liberty. In fact, you may have seen her walking back and forth behind me. She's a half Great Pyrenees, half German Shepherd, but she has done this work with me for about 3 years now. And when she sees another dog, she could care less. She is eyes on me because I'm the cookie factory, okay? and I will pay attention to Dad. And it is so much easier for my clients to work with her than it would be another dog who's a little out of control, because then they both overstimulate and then everything kind of falls apart. Liberty has learned over the years that paying attention to me is more valuable than paying attention to the dog. My job is to focus on Dad and not look at that dog, and we can go from that to then going to a city park and then going into a Home Depot. But back to the entire idea of leave it. When you were working with the long line and you let the long line out and you call them back and they see the hand drop, now all we got to do is just start saying leave it, or whatever word makes you happy. Some people don't like the word leave it because they think it's negative. You could say with me, focus, attention. You could say come here. You could just use the dog's name. You just got to be consistent with the word you use. But it means, hey, stop, come back, focus on me. If you can start doing that on the walks after you get good with the long line, let them out, they're sniffing, go, hey, leave it. Make sure your hand goes to the side, and the dog comes and gets a reward for giving that up and coming back, and I'll let them go back out. But throughout the walk, I'm going to get 20, 30 leave-its in and out, in and out. One of my favorite sayings in dog training is you got to practice when it's easy so you stand a chance when it's hard. And all of this pre-work, the 4-foot, the 15-foot, then adding leave it and not adding the walk too fast and stuff like that, is all just little steps that help you climb the mountain to a dog who pays more attention to you than on the walk. And if you're not willing to do all of that pre-work, then don't be surprised that you have a dog that's terrible on a walk. Okay? And a lot of people handle that by walking at 10 o'clock at night when there's no distractions and things like that. But eventually it's going to come back and it's going to bite you, because if you have to put the word hope at the front of the sentence, it's going to catch up with you. You're doing it wrong. Hope is not a technique. It's a prayer. We've talked about everything to do. We've kind of talked over everything. If you need more, there's plenty of videos of me actually doing it on the YouTube channel. Heck, we've wrote a book called Whoa Dog Whoa, which kind of puts this idea all together for you. All of this will be in the links. We'll add a lot to this, this video or podcast, however you're getting it. We'll add lots of links in the description, because it is a topic that kind of branches off in different directions, and it's a process. But where you are in the process also matters, because you may not need to start at the very beginning. You might be able to start in the middle, and you might have a dog who's almost perfect, but you just want to fine tune it. So obviously, if you've got questions, shout at me, reach out through Facebook, email, the website, anything. We always appreciate the comments, and getting a dog to pay attention to you on a walk is not nearly as hard as you think, but it does take a lot of consistency and frequency. All right. Have a good one, guys.